Welcome back to the Shema podcast, my friends, and a special 7-part series on the Merkavah, the divine chariot, with Rabbi Meisel. In our tradition, the Avos and great leaders of Israel are described not just as individuals, but as living pillars who embodied and carried the presence of Hashem into this world. Chazal teach that Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, and finally David HaMelech each became a Merkavah, a chariot for the Shekinah. Through their lives, choices, and spiritual strength, they reveal different attributes of Hashem to the world. Avraham with chesed, kindness, Yitzchak with gevurah, strength and discipline, Yaakov with tiferes, harmony and balance, Moshe with Netzach, endurance and eternity, Aaron, hod, splendor and humility, Yosef with yesod, which is foundation and moral purity, and David HaMelech with malchus, which is kingship and the sovereignty of Hashem manifest in this world. Over the next 7 episodes, Rabbi Meisel will guide us through the lives and midos of these great figures. One by one, we'll explore their unique attributes, their challenges, and the internal lessons they give us on how a human being can become a vessel for the divine. This is not just history, my friends. It is a roadmap for our own avoda today. Just as they became the Merkavah of Hashem in their time, so too can we strive to carry His presence into our own lives and the world around us.
Welcome to the Shema podcast, the podcast for the perplexed, where Torah insights, intertwined through personal stories, as well as interviews with leading Torah scholars, demonstrate the empowering qualities of Torah and mitzvot. To share feedback, suggest future topics, or ask questions for the host or his guests, click the show notes to join the growing WhatsApp community. Now to the show.
Today we are covering Moshe Rabbeinu and the sefirahs of Netzach. I was just telling Rabbi Meisel that I was excited for today's episode and to learn from him on this topic because my knowledge of the sefirahs and the avos and how they all tie together, it really starts to dwindle once you get past Yaakov and tiferes. Once you start getting into the ideas of Netzach and how they blend with hod and all these things, and it starts to get a little weak. So I've always wanted to strengthen up my understanding of these topics. And it seems strange that Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest man that ever lived, like if you were to ask Aaron and Yosef and David HaMelech, who was the greatest, they'll say Moshe Rabbeinu. And it's like, you sort of buried into the sefirahs of Netzach, you would think he'd be like the grand pinnacle of all the sefirahs, like malchus, maybe.
Right.
But I'm sure you'll explain like how he fits into this area. So why don't we start with a quick little recap? Bring everyone up to speed then, and then we'll sort of hop into the topic today.
Absolutely. Happy to do a little bit of a recap. But I think you'll see as we're talking about Netzach that it's very hard to not talk about Netzach without a recap. Because like you said, you're not the only one. After the Midah of Tiferes, people do tend to get confused. And I'll explain to you why they do. And if you allow me to do it this way, you'll see that we're going to naturally do a recap. It's going to come in as we describe it.
Got it. Okay.
Let's start like this. In terms of spheros, there's 3 different groups that people do know about: the right, the left, the center. We've spoken about this. We've talked about the idea that the right is the idea of beginning, of kindness, of expression, of like moving something outwards. It was the idea of Avraham Avinu, masculinity, chesed, kindness, newness. It works in the world of chesed. It also even works in the world of chachma, of wisdom, which I am actually going to come back to in a second. In terms of ideas, we also said, right, that you have a thought that first has that first flash of energy or thought. And then you have the left side, which is the side that is the counterbalance, which we understand as gevurah, which is strength. It's the idea of like, or bina, which is understanding. It's the idea of taking the first energy, which is the idea, the beginning, the data, the start, and then moving it further in. It's like developing it, the 9 months of pregnancy. It's taking the beauty of an idea and working hard in order to bring it to life. And then finally, the idea of either, you can call it Yaakov or Das or Tiferes, is the middle, is the balance We have Avram on the right, we have Yitzchak on the left, and then you have Yaakov in the middle is the balance where we had the first idea, we had on the right, on the left we had the idea of the development of that idea or the development of the data or taking the kindness and then like, doing something with it, making it real. And then the birth of it is Yaakov. It's the child. It's after the long journey of pain, of struggle, to now see this beauty, this central being or this wholeness that you can only understand in the context of the whole thing. You remember what the term of Tiferes is beauty. Said beauty is something that comes with contrast, with harmony, with colors, of different sorts, the yin and the yang kind of idea. The idea where you have this balance and it expresses itself in a child is the idea of like you had two opposites that came together and became this incredible new being that can only be described as perfect and love and beauty. And the notion of it is like that end of the journey. So that's the idea of the threes that people know. And each set of the midos, people tend to know, or of the spheros tend to have these three energies. But where people get confused and where Netzach throws people off is if I were to ask you, the term Netzach literally means eternal. Other literal translation of Netzach is to defeat, to conquer. If you were to take both of those terms and I were to ask you, where does that belong? What midah what would you think, the right or the left? The idea of conquering, the idea of fight, or the idea of having to work hard to endure something. Where would you guess?
Naturally, to me, where it fits is masculinity, because it's pushing forward. It's a giving over act. Okay, good. So you guessed one step past, or like I always failed because I went the other way. I always was like, well, Moshe is din. Moshe is like halacha. There's a concept of yikov hadin as hahar, that justice will penetrate through the mountain, will destroy anything. It's like it's harsh, right? And the idea of Netzach, of conquering, felt like harsh. It was felt like the opposite of Avraham, right? If anything, you mean the opposite of Moshe?
No, the Moshe is the opposite of Avraham. Meaning, Avram right, was the male, was the idea of chesed, and Moshe, I would have thought it was the idea of harshness, of strength, of power. Like you have all these, stories with the Makos also that he brought out. He was the hand of God. Like he was the representation in the world that was bringing this out. And had I thought about Aaron, right? Aaron is the one who is number 5, is the idea of Hod. I would have thought of Aaron as the one who's more associated with Avram. I would have.
Yes.
Because it's love, kindness, right?
So your question was on Netzach.
Right.
If you had specified you were talking about Moshe and Aaron, where they fit, I agree.
Right. So with Moshe and Aaron, you see the question, right?
Yes.
So with Netzach, I used to think, I thought the same thing also, and I couldn't align it up. And I'll give you, I'm going to explain to you another process of 3 that we have to go through in order to understand how it fits. So think like this. In terms of Kabbalah, in terms of spheros, there's a set of terminology that's used to go through the groups of 3. So just like 3 has right, left, and center, there are the groups of 3. There's 3 groups of 3. Malchus is its own thing. We'll talk about Malchus afterwards. But the 9 spheros, they're groups of 3. The first group is, the term for it would be muskal, would be haskala, which is like the mind. The second set is called murgash, felt. It's the emotions, it's the heart. And then the last part, it's an interesting term, but the last 3 are called mutba, which means like, teva literally means nature. It's like the things that are ingrained in you as automatic. It's kind of like the idea of like when you wake up in the morning, if you're on autopilot for the day, and I were to remove your brain, right, or just remove the coffee from your brain, right? Like that's called mutba. It's the experience of how you just go about everything that's around you. It's not without the thought, without the heart. We can align them, and the idea is to take from the top and to push it in. But the idea of Netzach, Hod, and Yisod are going to be in the world of what's happening down below, outside.
Are you saying it is the conditioned responses?
Yes, that would be like if you were to translate the word mutba. It's like that, like conditioned. It's the passive term for teva, for your natural self. It's an interesting term, right?
Which makes sense because there's so much of the pre-programmed natural response to everything in the world that as a Jew, I guess it's everyone, we're tasked with totally flipping 180 degrees.
Right.
So basically that's what we're referring to here. And
yes.
It sort of leads into this idea of where our task is at hand. That you get the intellect to guide the emotions to change all of this internal behavior.
Right. What you're doing is it's very intuitive. What you're doing is you're taking the concept of mind, heart, action, so to speak.
Yes.
And what you're doing is you're jumping and you're saying, well, if I want to use this to align myself, right, then I would start from the top and go down, right? I'd go from the world of ratzon, of keter, of chachma, bina, my mind, to direct it, and then let that affect my emotions even. The way the Baal Tanya describes it is that, your neshama lives in your mind, and through the mind, through meditating on things like love of God, or meditating on the greatness of God or on Torah, so it'll move it'll direct the Yetzer HaTov and the neshama to move into the heart. The left ventricle of the heart is where the Yetzer Hara lives, which could be its own share. But the idea is you're going to move the Torah, if you put that first, and drive it into your heart. So you could take the idea of like thinking and meditating on all the gifts from God, and all of a sudden it causes you to love Him. The Yetzer Hara, which lives in the heart, it's the drive and the passion for things. So if it's overwhelmed by love, but the love is for God, so all of a sudden your Yetzer Hara is your biggest power, because it's the drive to go way outside yourself, to pump the whole body with energy, to do something, to get the steroids into the body, and so in fact, when the Yetzer Hara was created in the Torah, so God describes man when He creates him. He says that He saw that man was tov me'od. Very good. Everything else is good. Man was tov me'od. Rashi says, what's tov? Tov is the Yetzer Tov. Me'od, a lot, very, is the Yetzer Hara. And me'od is the power of more, the power of very, of expansion of something, of being able to move more. So taking chachma first, if you take the idea of wisdom and plug it into the heart, so the heart all of a sudden becomes this tool, this vehicle for power, right? We talked about last week the Merkavah. You're turning your body, which has the engine, right? It has like 8-cylinder, like 150 horsepower, like Mustang, like body that clearly could also be a Yetzer Hara. You could drive it to Vegas, but at the same time, if it's revved up for mitzvahs, so that's the heart. So then it's going to powerfully like drive, and it's going to change action. So mutba, which is the last stage, which is one of the terms that's used a lot for Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, is going to be the idea of like what you were saying was taking the mind and driving it through into action. Right.
Because the emotions don't seem like a permanent, meaning your intellect can drive your emotions to feel a certain way, but the next day you can emote differently.
No, you're absolutely right.
Right. So, but when you can, which gets back to the whole goal of the Jew again, is that we're here to elevate the guf, the physical body.
Yeah.
That's our task.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. There's actually one more step to it, but yes, that is what we're talking about. Okay. Before the last step, I'm going to just parenthetically point something out that we mentioned in a different share, but just to show where it applies here, is you said something very important, the idea that we emote differently all the time. The truth is we do everything differently, but emote differently is the thing that like is very, very clear to us, right? Like the way that we act and the way that we think tend to be fairly consistent, right? Like the idea of like how you think and process something, we can grow, but there's a nature to it. The way that you act tends to be fairly consistent. The way that you feel is the thing that gets thrown all over the place, right? That notion of being thrown all over the place is actually the experience of man in the world. Chagat, which is chesed, gvur, tiferes, are the midos that we tend to really relate to, because they're the ones that we feel. We live in our feelings mostly. People try to conquer that, and there's different. Some people live more in their actions, but like the idea of like just getting fired up or angry or happy or loving, like that's really how we define self a lot. in those feelings. And so when you shift through the world, what you don't always see is that you live in a kaleidoscope, a spiritual kaleidoscope, where there are constantly three things that are moving. There's you, it's called nefesh, and the nefesh specifically is you with all these different traits, these spheros. So there's all these different pieces of you that are like being highlighted, but they're being pushed and affected by two other things. They're being affected by Zman, which is time, and Makom, which is space. And so the world around you is constantly affecting you and your emotions and your feelings. And so like what it's doing is it's evoking like a question mark of like, how do I interact at this moment? And what you're really doing is that like there's a unique synergy of these three energies of time, space, and self that are so significant because it has a unique barcode, so to speak, that will never, ever, ever be like come back again. It's an eternal existence of that soul, that place and that time that needed to be there exactly at every moment of your life. And it adds incredible significance to it. The feelings is like you're being evoked by it. There's things from all those three that are pushing you. And sometimes it's you flow with it. Sometimes you're conquering it. But there's an awareness of doing this means that like that moment is supposed to be elevated. And the most simple way to elevate those moments, if you're ever in a place where you don't know what to do next, right? When you're ever in a place where you're being thrown around, where you're experiencing this idea of this flow, and like, I don't know what to do. I'm put in this place, I'm put in this time, I'm put with me, and somehow these skills or this me doesn't know how to elevate this moment, right? So the most potent, simple thing that we do is we daven. What does davening do? So we say in Adon Olam, it's a beautiful line. We say, Minas kel kosi b'yom sorry, that I call out to God, and He is the portion of my cup when I call Him. Minas kosi b'yom. The secret to tefillah, we think we're asking God for help and for things. The thing that you get every single time you daven is God. The portion of my cup when I call out to God is God Himself. So you're taking Him and impregnating the moment with godliness. Where that's going to go, how it's going to go, you don't know. But you're roping Hashem into those moments. It's an incredible tool. Rav Shlomo Wolbe even says by tefillah, that every single moment of your life that you daven, and you daven 3 times a day, is you're constantly taking your new situations and roping that to God, so that every single part of you, every portion, every moment, everything that's you has now learned how to be roped to God, has now been elevated and connected to God, even in your darkest places and in your days that you hate.
The whole idea, I think what you're suggesting is that the davening is all about when we don't know what to do in these situations, is we're praying to let Hashem guide us on making His will our will.
Yes.
Is that another way of saying this?
Yeah, I mean, you could daven for other things as well, but yes, if you pull Hashem in, right, so there is that element, like you're saying, that automatically you're saying, Hashem, I know whatever is supposed to happen is going to be best. That's true. But there's more to it, is that, like, Hashem, I need a situation that I'm in right now. I don't have the skill set, or this nefesh doesn't know how to interact with this man and this makom. But once you're here, it can happen. Something's going to happen. Sometimes I'll see it in a revealed way, sometimes I won't. But the conclusion of this experience when God's here is that I win. Okay. Another note,
I think it's important, I want to emphasize this idea too, that as you brought the Yetzer Hara, that the goal is not to destroy the Yetzer Hara. The goal is to love Hashem with both our hearts.
Right.
Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov. So the goal is to channel the Yetzer Hara in productive purposes in the service of Hashem.
Yeah, 100%. That's why we're here.
A lot of the jet fuel that we can actually use in that
100%.
service.
I like that you said jet fuel, right? It's exactly that. It's where we move from into turbo speed.
Right. So like I said, we're like a lot of our parnasa sort of really flows through as a result of our life. We just sort of maybe get in the way a lot. But I read this idea the other day that we use the Yetzer Hara because we say, look, let's go make a lot of money so we can provide for our family.
100%.
Then Yetzer Hara's like, let's do it. It's like it's on board on that. And Hashem's like, that's you're right, because you're asking to receive to give.
Yes.
And now everyone's in alignment. And I think that's an idea that I'm sure we'll feed in more as we get to Netzach and Hod.
That's actually the perfect feed into Netzach. Do you see how we've already done so much, like how this has been such a big review of everything already.
Yeah.
So you're going to see why that's actually critical to really understand Netzach. Both the 1, 2, 3 energy of right, left, and center, and then the idea of mind, emotion, how emotion becomes this tool of this like being thrown around and like having to pull God in. And then there's then we move into Netzach. We move into Mutba. So we said it's Teva's action. The part that we didn't explain yet, or that we didn't move to, is that when the part of the body that the Kabbalists describe for what's called Nihi, Nun He Yod Netzach Hod and Yisod, is the lower spheres, is below the hips. Your right leg is Netzach, your left leg is Hod. And the way that the Zohar, the way that the Kabbalists explain it, is Trei Palge de Gufa, is the two halves of the body. So the idea is it's really actually very hard to live with one without the other. They're critical. I'll explain it in what we do, and you'll see how it applies. My right side is my strength. My regel, my foot, is what takes me places. As strong as the right side is, I can't take a second step without the left. The two of them together are going to be what's going to allow me to walk. Why is walking important? Well, walking is, and by the way, if you note, in Shemona Esrei, Malachim only have 1 foot. Man has 2.
Get to that.
Right.
We put our feet together during Kadosh for this very reason. And I think the reason is because they don't have the struggle of having 2 opposing drives within them, as we do.
Right. Those 2 sides, which are opposing, are also critical for moving forward. It's a paradox, but the paradox is what allows movement. So Shemona Esrei, right, or davening, is when we are in the world of the leiv, right? It's the avot of the leiv. We actually, the minhag for Hasidim to put on a gartel is actually halacha. It's just that you need something to separate the heart from the lower spheres.
Explain what a
gartel is.
Yes,
sure. So first, the halacha is that your heart is supposed to be separate from your erva, from the nude parts of the body. And it used to be we'd just wear like cloaks. So if you didn't have a belt that you would tie to the cloak, then your heart would see your erva, so to speak. What's happening is that your heart needs to be separated from the lower body. What you'll see, especially in the Hasidic world, is there's a piece of garb called a gartel, which is like these like black, or some people have white ones. They're like these belts that they wrap around their waist and they pull them tight. Right, it's a karate belt with a little tassel at the end. But really, like even wearing like a belt or a pair of underpants, like from a halachic standpoint, works. And even for Hasidim, I've spoken to those. If you're ever in a situation where you don't have anything else, you just tighten you can technically use your belt as your gartel.
Okay. So that's interesting. So this is halakha. It's just some don't actually get a gartel because we actually.
It's not necessary, right? From a halachic standpoint, it's not necessary because you already have it. Pants do.
But the idea is that we're compartmentalizing the upper half from the lower half.
Right. You're not moving. When you're davening, you want to be like an angel. You want to be in the world of the heart. But afterwards, you remove the gartel, so to speak, right? You now go into the world of the legs. The legs are what moves you places. It's what allows you to go out into the world. And so what's significant here is that we explain the idea of action, but what we didn't explain is that Netzach Hod Yisod is not just action, it's action into the world. It's affecting the rest of the world. It's the most dangerous in terms of the purity. And a lot of like deeper sefirah will talk about this idea that your internal world is all connected to this like flow of all of your inner self working together. There's a yichud, there's a oneness to it, there's a connection to it. But when it comes to the outer world, you don't have control anymore, right? We saw it a little in Chabad, and when I talked about the emotions being thrown places. But what's really happening is the outer world is affecting you, and it's a painful set of sefirot, because what happens is that if you do what's right in your heart and you hold on to it, you get to control that world. You can put the right actions out in the world, and it doesn't matter. Things can get thrown out at you that are completely against or anti what it is that you did. You might do something and the exact opposite is what's going to happen. And there's other people interacting. And those feelings or those moments where like I did everything right. And somehow this guy is still beating me. and the world is backing him, even though like we know that he's wrong, right?
Right.
It's or like, I did everything right in this, and like and I am not seeing the change. I'm putting it in, and I don't see the transformation.
Right. So what makes this whole paradigm interesting is that when you look at all the parties involved in this construct of man, everything happening in the external world is being orchestrated by Hashem, which is, I guess, it seems frustrating because he is the one creating all these unique situations, and then he embeds within us the Yetzirah that tries to get us to listen to the body, and but who we truly are trying to elevate the body. It's really an interesting dynamic that Hashem created for us to work through here.
Right. But what you did was you impregnated the thought. You impregnated the process with the thought that's important. What you did, without even realizing it, was things are happening on the outside. What you did was you took a piece of emunah and put it in your mind. And if it's worked properly and worked through, and obviously like there's easier moments to do that and harder ones, what you did was you actually transformed the experience. You took it from your mind, and your mind, if it goes into your heart, this is really Hashem, then when you go into the world, then you're taking the experience and elevating it. This is a godly moment, right?
Right.
Like that's the gamzul tova, that's the bitachon. It's the idea of taking everything's from God, and if you are able to elevate it back to God, so then it actually, even in the physical world, manifests in a greater way in goodness, like in clear goodness, right? And that's the Lubavitcher Rebbe would suggest when it came to this, to the idea of having to have faith, is to try, even at the moments when something bad happened, to try to grab on right away to something good about it that you can even see physically. To at least try to grab something like that.
Right.
I had a personal experience where like I grappled for 4 or 5 months, and honestly, in some ways, I grapple with it still now, about something that I just didn't feel right, and like I felt like should have gone the other way. But essentially, about 8 months later, something happened that made me realize had it happened the way that I wanted it to, it would have been a disaster. Something I was so sure was the right answer, was the path, and it would have been disastrous. And it was just like, it was a moment of like recognizing it's something in business. And it was like, wow, thank God. Let's zero in on it a little bit more.
Okay.
Now that we've done this, like I said, the background is critical to understand, because if you don't get the idea that this is the midah that goes from mind to heart to body or to action, and also the idea that this is where body is and also where the whole other world, right, is, you don't really understand it. And it's the place where like things get difficult. So Netzach literally is translated as forever or to conquer. So if you were to think about this in real life and why it's difficult and why it's challenging, what's really happening in life that's difficult is that consistently acting in a certain way will bring out a certain level of response. Everything I'm going to say, we have to balance with Hod, which is recognizing that everything's from God. But so I'm just prefacing that. That's the right and the left.
Right.
But move that aside. I'm going to talk in very much derech hateva, and it might sound anti-religious, but it's not. The counterbalance is understanding God.
Right.
But your entire world, from the derech hateva standpoint, and from the standpoint of like how you can change yourself, every single step that you take, every habit that you have, will define your life. Right? Like if. James Clear is the Rebbe in Lahavdil, in the world of the secular world of Netzach. The idea of habits. He's the author of Atomic Habits, and in that book he describes how habits have compounding interest in your life. So like if every single day, an example would be like this. Let's say every single day you walk a mile. Okay, we can give that one. A shout out to Rabbi Wender, who is like the Netzach man of our community. If you ever watch in the morning after davening, every single day, consistently hot, sweaty, whatever it is, he's walking a mile after shul, and it's like 7 a.m. or 7:15. Everyone else is on their way to shul. He already got up and was like learning at 5 o'clock in the morning, like in the base measures before anyone gets there. He's doing Talmud Yerushalmi now, and then he has his davening, and like everything, like consistent Seder time over and over. If you walk a mile right in the morning, so what happens? So first of all, it helps your health. It gives you more energy. But what else does it do? So you've now released endorphins into your body. So what happens in the next hour? So you're kinder to your wife. the beginning of your day is better. You might make a better choice because you have more energy about your food. Then you go to work. Work is going to be better because you were happier, right? And all of a sudden, your interaction with your colleagues is going to be better. You're going to make better choices it might be with your wallet, with savings, what you do with your paycheck. If you do that and you have a better bank account now, so that's going to affect how you're going to interact with. You're just if you have an opportunity to go on vacation or to buy a higher quality microphone for your podcast, right? Like the idea is that each thing, and that will affect something else. So the idea is that each time you do something, you elect for good, it affects something else. The next day when you walk, so not only are you getting the benefit, you're getting all the benefit from yesterday, and then you're doing it again. Right, it's the same idea of compounding interest with investments. You get 8% back, and 8% back, or whatever the number is, and then that money that came back into your account also will accrue more, right? More success. And so the idea is that Netzach means the thing that you do, the pure, beautiful, positive version of that would be taking a decision of something good and putting it into the world every single day, over and over and over again. You're going to continuously opt on the system of doing good over and over and over again. With the Rambam, he talks about the mitzvah tzedakah, which is probably one of the coolest, most beautiful versions of this set of spheros kind of action that you could do. What's so special about tzedakah? The money itself is actually a translation of who you are, of hours that you've dedicated and traded for this, right? You put in an hour of work and now it turns into money. So this money is now called damim. I think we mentioned this in a different class, but just for review, it's blood. Damim is one of the terms for money. It means blood. Your blood is in here, right? Because there was an hour of your day that was traded for this $1 or for this $10. Now you're taking a piece of you, you're putting it into the world, and you're sending it to make a difference. The Chafetz Chaim builds out, by the way, by the mitzvah of chesed. He says, what you don't understand when you do kindness to another, when you're actually affecting someone else. So the same way that we describe the compounding interest, that one thing might affect another, Chafetz Chaim says you get a reward for every single positive ramification that continues to come out. I give $100 to a gemach. The gemach buys some clothing for someone who can't afford it. And this person now feels better and has a better experience at shul and davens better. You get schus for the davening to be better. And what if they daven for someone to heal? You get schus for that because your chesed kept going into the world. The you that is expanded into the entire world happens through Netzach, right? It's an amazing thing. The power of Netzach is conquering. And now we can go to Moshe. We didn't even talk about Moshe yet.
Yes.
So Moshe is a fascinating character. There's so much Torah on Moshe. The Maharal says like this. The Maharal says, do you want to know why Moshe is called Moshe? The reason Moshe is called Moshe, the name literally means to be drawn out. I pulled him out of the water. He says that water is the birthing place of reality. Water is the physical world that doesn't yet have makom. It doesn't have structure. It's where it doesn't have place. It's where nothing has yet emerged. And there are things in there. There are ingredients in there, but they haven't solidified. By nothing more, if you put 2 drops of water together, you can never get those drops of water back. There's nothing solid about it. It's right. Like it'll literally be a miracle. And when a boat, right? A boat is the attempt of creating makom in the water. So, but when something is drawn from the water and it enters into the world that we're living in, all of a sudden something like a reality, a construct, a concept now becomes something that is manifest, right? It's really, really interesting when you think about day 3, right, of creation, when all of a sudden the secrets of what was going to come out, no, now it's here, right? And so water is a very, very interesting idea. It breaks things down. And
water is always symbolic to Torah itself.
Yes, right. And the truth is that the Torah exists, just in a simple term, like you're saying, the Torah existed before the world did. The world manifests out of the Torah, right? The Torah is this infinite light of God, right? That's there, and everything comes from it, right? And then you see it in its physical manifestation in the world. Is that where you're going with the water?
Yeah, obviously there was talking about Moshe, we're talking about just as water is the source of all new things in life. Obviously, on a spiritual level, that's what Torah is.
Right, exactly. And you immerse yourself in it in order to come out better.
Right.
That's the mikvah, right? Or the Torah, right? You throw yourself in and you come out, and there's a new being. There's a bria chadasha. There's a new creation that comes out. The idea of a baby in utero, right, is in the amniotic fluid. You're like the idea of the amount of water that has to exist. It's enough for an entire body to be inside. It's 40 seah. That's the measurement is for a human body to be able to fit inside and emerge. So like there's complete like new creation that comes out of the water. So Moshe had to be drawn from water. Why do you have to be drawn from water? So the Maral, like Moshe had 10 names. Maral says Moshe is the one that we highlight. That's how we know him, because what he represents is that a new existence had to emerge and come into the world in order to bring Torah down. The Torah hadn't entered the world yet until Moshe came. What is that? That's Netzach. Why is that Netzach? Why is that Netzach? Your internal world of your mind and your heart and the infinite power of the mind, right? Like imagine the infinite power of the mind, the pumping up, the idea, the thought, the want has to manifest in it the first step. It has to come out. There's something called action potential. After you take your first step to do anything, it's 40% easier to keep going. It's the action energy, like to make something happen. That first impulse of it was Moshe. The Torah in Shamayim, if you remember, Moshe had to go up and fight with the angels and rip it out of the sky, right? Like he had to prove it. And not only that, he conquered the universe. What we don't understand from that moment when he went up to heaven to get the Torah, once he had the Torah, he now had the keys to the entire universe, because everything flows from the Torah. The Zohar says God looked into the Torah and created the world. The whole entire world follows that. The Malachim who battled with him, it gave him gifts. They gave him themselves. Like, we belong to you now. You can create us, right? You can drive the world through this. The entire universe. Anochi, the first word of the Torah, Chazal point out is ani nafshi savis yahavis. I Hashem. I don't remember the precise quote. It's from the Zohar. I wrote my soul into the Torah and I gave it to them. I gave them my soul. It was in the Torah. The Torah is one with God, and now it's one with us. And we plugged into the mainframe, and now we have the power to command it. It's a wild idea. What happened was that the mind and the heart of the universe, so to speak, now is it going to be here to affect the entire world. And not only that, for all of time it's going to, right? And that's Netzach. He conquered the world, and now for the rest of time, right, it's going to continue to be the thing that is guiding everything. That is Netzach in its most manifest, proper, aligned way. Is Torah starts, right, and then it goes from the idea of Chachma into the world of emotions or Chesed Gvura Tiferes, which is the idea of the heart part, which connects the mind to action, right? And then it goes into action itself, and the whole world is going to follow the path of the Torah and everything that's in the Torah. That's where we're going with Moshe as Netzach and conquering. Another piece of it is that we know that the Torah, when it was given, has two elements. There's the Torah Shebichsav and the Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Torah Shebichsav, the written Torah, the oral Torah, which will always be. The actual Sefer Torah that Moshe wrote was supposed to be like inside the temple, part of the term of edus, of being a witness, of the idea of testimony. The Torah of testimony was that the other Torahs could not be changed because it would have to be compared and cross-checked with this one. There's an element of Netzach that we see that Moshe had that's very interesting. Like this Torah that he had to write on the last day to make it right, and it had to be perfect, and it would always be like the one that everything else would be testified against. That it was true. And when in Parshas Azinu, and he talks to the heavens and the earth, and he testifies to them, Rashi says, because they're going to be here, right? Like there's something about his message that had to be forever and carry through time, right? It's like you keep, like when you look at him and look carefully, you see that the Netzach, like kept replaying itself and pushing itself into that foreverness. That's the Torah Shebechsav, and then we have the Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Torah Sheba'al Peh has an element of Netzach too, the oral Torah. What's the Torah Sheba'al Peh? So the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah is the Torah that we carry every generation. And every single Jew has a chelik in that Torah and is continuing to develop it. When we learn it with our own context, our own time, our own neshama, and their chidushim that come out. And the Medrash says that Moshe knew all of these chidushim. The Medrash points out to when Moshe was brought to Rabbi Akiva and he saw his shir. It was almost like there's an element of chiddush, of forever, that this Torah would continue to develop, but that it was still tied to Moshe at the beginning, that he knew it, but it was still going to keep going, right? And so we kept the idea of Torah. We kept not just the idea of Torah and the words that he said, but like it continues to live and breathe with us.
Right. So the idea of Moshe and victory and eternity is that what he set in motion by sitting in a meeting and teaching over the oral Torah is something that is permanent and continues to this day.
Yeah. And then it comes to us. Now that we understand like that, just the notion of Moshe as the one who is impregnating the world with the Torah, taking like we went from Ratzon all the way through the Chabads and the Chagats, the Chesed Bina, the Chachma Bina Das, etc. All that energy that manifests in the Torah coming into this world, and him conquering the world. He was also the beginning of the conquest of the land of Israel as his students. There was a part of that is very attractive to us. There's a part of that that's very hard for us. The idea to conquer, the idea of power in a negative way is we know is one of the most dangerous mitos in the world. There are those who even say by Moshe that Moshe had a thirst for blood, and and you see places in the Torah where it manifests in the right way, killing the Mitzri who was beating Dasan Aviram or things like that, or when he fought against Og. So the Medrash, I don't know if you ever heard this. The Medrash says Moshe was 10 amos tall, his staff was 10 amos long, his extension of hand was 10 amos, and when he jumped 10 amos into the air. So you're talking about 15, about 60 feet. And he reached Og's ankle and he conquered him. It's very cool, like Medrash. You see this like little, right, like gigantic, but little power. Whatever the Medrash means here is fascinating. Yeah. Yeah. And you see this cool idea that like we now, like the whole world was going to be, no matter how big it was going to be conquered by this. It was going to be owned and ruled by Hashem and his word. But like it's a very dangerous mita. It's the mita where murder comes, right? It's the mita, right? Like to want to conquer, to be like, but it's also the mita that like it's the drive that makes us want to go out into the world. Like you had mentioned by the Yetzer Hara, so that is a power that we use. So when you wake up in the morning and it is very unhealthy. It's very dangerous for someone to not be able to have Netzach, to not have a reason to get up and to fight and to say I'm going to conquer. Is where depression sets in. There's an amazing story in the early 1900s. There was a Professor Lustig, I think was his name, who was presented with a challenge. He found that there were children who were survivors of cancer who became obese. And it became a consistent thing that would happen over and over again. But he had this challenge because all of a sudden you have these parents coming in and say, we fought the biggest fight in the entire world. My kid gave it everything and they won. But not only did they become obese, they didn't want to move. And there was lots of scientists who were putting their time and research into trying to figure this out. They would even hold their food and count the calories like in a very controlled way, and the kids continued to gain weight. And what they found was that the metabolism in these kids had gone down so much because of insulin issues with the fight with cancer that essentially they no longer had any drive or energy to do anything. And they just kept getting bigger. And so what he did was he started giving them insulin injections, which signals to the body to take in like glucose. And all of a sudden they had energy again. Like their body was being signaled to process this. The way that the story is described is that kids even just started working out on their own. They got themselves back. And if you don't have the power to conquer, if you don't have Netzach, it's extremely dangerous. And it's sad and it's hard. if it's too much of a drive, it's also dangerous, right?
It's like big challenge is children who are born with massive trust funds.
That's an amazing example.
And they end up becoming very depressed. I've seen lots of documentaries on this. Like a lot of them end up getting into drugs. They have no purpose. Suicide rates much higher.
Wow.
I mean, you have hundreds of millions of dollars set aside, but that's the whole idea. It's like, so then what do you fight for? What's the purpose?
Yeah.
And which I guess puts perspective into the lives of us who have struggles every day. We're like, we wish they would be lightened up a little bit. But I think that's the idea. We're here to conquer, but I like to focus a little bit and delineate between how the Yetzer Hara wants us to conquer and how the Yetzer Tov or Neshama wants us to conquer, because those are two distinct things. The Yetzer Hara is grounded in pure selfishness, right? Taking everything from the world for itself, which that's a shattering of the vessels. To receive just destroys itself. And we're trying to bring victory, which is the Torah way, which is to give and to unify, to bring all creation back to one.
Yeah.
In a way.
So that's the solution to Netzach being harnessed is actually why it's Trei Palgei de Gufa, why it's two halves of the body, is that Netzach is not a meat on its own. Netzach is balanced with Hod, which we'll talk about more by Aaron, but just to understand is that every step, the Raglayim, you can't take a right step without a left step. You take a big step, you can't keep going. You need the left step to counterbalance. And what is Hod? Hod is from the word Hodah, thanks, admission, submission. It's the idea that, yes, I'm conquering, but every step that I conquer, none of it mattered. It was all God. It was all me, and it's all God at the same time. It's like, Bishvilini v'alam, Hashem created the world for me. I got to go, I got to conquer, I got to fight. But none of it was me at the same time. It's all a gift. It's all like all my gifts are really Hashem, and then I can take another. It's like, and once I recognize that, go fight again. I gave you something. I want you to put it in. I'm going to give you a reward for it. You're going to grow. Recognize, right? And it's every step. That's how, like sometimes, I'm not a Kabbalist at all by any means, but the sometimes you wonder with the path that you're taking in life. Is sometimes when we take the step to the right, one of the segulas that we talked about for Parnasa is benching. And it's like, so you took a step, now you need to recognize, and then you can take another step, right? It's almost like it fits beautifully to the idea that you want to conquer more. I want you to conquer more. I want you to be able to win and succeed. I'm going to do it for you. But you got to be able to take both the right and the left together.
That's interesting. So you're harnessing the Yetzer Hara in order to expand and have these victories and change who you are for the better, to fight and elevate the body. But then, of course, the next play of the Yetzer Hara is to shift you into arrogance, which just then totally pushes out Hashem from being. If you're being a Merkavah, you're drawing Hashem into the world.
Right.
So that's the last step where the arrogance can step in and block everything you've accomplished so far.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll get into next week with Hod and Aaron.
Yeah. Can I finish with the story?
Please.
There's a very cool doctor in St. Louis. There's two very special doctors in St. Louis who are both cardiologists. One is Dr. Craig Reese, and one is his partner, Dr. Alan Weiss. I lived there for a while, and they're both like amazing tzaddikim. Dr. Weiss was the doctor of Rav Shach. It's cool. The Lubavitcher Rebbe and Rav Shach were kind of like Bali Machlokas. They took two sides of a coin. They both had cardiologists named Dr. Weiss, like different ones. One Dr. Weiss in St. Louis, fascinating person. And, like one time, like he flew to Israel. He gets to the hotel and Rav Shach pulls up. He didn't tell anyone he was going to Israel. He went for like a day or two, and Rav Shach pulls up and said, "I just came to welcome you here." A very like eerie, like very spiritual, like deep connection. And he described that one time he was on a Pesach program, and I guess in his journey of being as a Baal Tshuva, so as you're growing, you take on more things. If I have a detail off, forgive me, but in your journey as a Baal Tshuva, like you have different things that are challenges. And there was one challenge in particular that was his next jump that was hard for him, and it was on Pesach, and he saved someone's life. There was someone who had a heart attack. He had nitroglycerin. He saved the person's life, and the person bought him an aliyah. What aliyah did he buy him? He bought him on Shvi Shel Pesach, a 7th day Pesach. he bought him the Aliyah of Az Yashir, of the sea splitting. And he has a unique way of reading the Torah, and he's spoken to Gedolim about it. And one of the psukim in Az Yashir says, Sus v'rochvo ramavayam, that the horse and its rider were thrown into the sea. And his pshat on that pasuk is as follows, that the horse represents the Yetzer Hara, it's the tool, it's the Merkavah, it's the ability to run places, and the rider is the one on top who guides it. And if the sus v'rochvo, if the horse and its rider are thrown to the sea, so then what that means is that where the Yetzer Hara is in charge, that was cast away. During the Aliyah, he said he felt this incredible transformation. He felt like the Yetzer Hara for this challenge just dropped, was thrown out the window. And later that day, there was a man who came up to him and said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure." He said, "I'm a ben achar ben of the Ramah. I'm a son of the Ramah, or of Moshe Israelis. And I just want to tell you as outside confirmation that whatever this spiritual experience you had today was real." Wild story, no?
Wow. He didn't share this with anyone.
Yeah, but he hadn't shared it with anyone. He just came up to him and it said, yeah. Like meaning it wasn't like something he announced to people. The man came up to him and he told him this.
Right.
Why am I telling this story? The Sus v'roch v'ramavayam is you should know, like in life, like you have a power of Netzach. You have a power to conquer. God put you in this world and you're walking around, and like Netzach to conquer also requires continuous work, over and over. And the steps are hard. And sometimes we don't know like when that moment is that's going to turn. But sometimes when there's the dip, when the things get harder, that's just the sign that you're almost there. It has to come. It's part of the process, right? It's like the hard part is there, and then you take the next step. And then you take the left step and say thank you, and you take the right step and say the left step. And that's really where, if you want to grow in Netzach, and I'm talking to myself too, because I struggle with Netzach. It's probably the hardest midah of all my midos. Just the idea of knowing that the continued fight, it's like you're not alone, and there's power and there's nace and things that are involved. But your job, right? Like you have to remember the whole, but your job is you just keep fighting. If it's aligned, if you know that it's coming from Ratzon, from Keter, from the right place in your mind, the right place in your heart, you just keep taking the steps. And that's the message of Netzach is right. Like if your the Torah is the ultimate power of Netzach. If that's how you're aligned, then that's how you're going out into the world, and that's the mark you're leaving.
Amazing. That was very beneficial to hear that and get a much better understanding of that. Yeah, I just want to sort of summarize this idea that you brought a lot more clarity to me on the essence of our life. You know, we tend to we learn Torah, it's intellectually like, wow, fascinating. Did you hear this? It's like, and then we can live in this like intellectual world. But that Torah is not supposed to sustain itself and exist just in our intellectual world. Hashem wants us to take that Torah and transform ourselves from it. The last episode, we were talking about the knot on the tefillin that takes the idea of Emunah and brings it into the body, the technology of the tefillin. One day we'll have the mathematics for it. I don't know if I shared this with you in that episode, not to get too far off track, but I shared with the audience when I did an episode on tefillin. I concluded with a study that was done about 5 or 6 years ago, where they realized that that people who wore tefillin had like much significantly statistically lower heart conditions.
Wow.
Like it was like off the charts, like this is a statistical anomaly that people who are wearing tefillin don't have heart conditions at the rate of everyone else. And the scientists are saying they're investigating the tefillin, they're taking it apart, trying to figure out like what is the properties here.
Yeah.
It's just like they'll figure out that metaphysical math when Mashiach comes.
It's the two straps are called Netzach and Hod. The straps that come out of the back of the knot, which is Das, that connects it to the world, right?
Oh, it's Netzach and Hod. Okay, each strap. Okay, beautiful.
Pretty cool, no?
Yeah, very cool. But I mean, I love this whole idea too. That we talked a lot about the emotional element, but like I said, that's fluid. And how do we take that and then bring permanence to it? And it is this whole idea that I'm sure we'll continue to build on with the next episode on Hod, but the eternity, finally makes sense to me. The eternity in victory is when we make those changes within ourselves. One of the things I brought up over Shavuos when I was giving a teaching is this idea that during the time in Mitzrayim and Egypt, Pharaoh had us, or more specifically, Hashem had Pharaoh have us build these structures on soft soil. So we would build the structure, and then before we took any pride in it, it would collapse.
Right.
And it sort of instilled this idea of that we need to focus on making sure that we are always working on Netzach. What are you building? Is it permanent? You think about things like struggling to start a business. And then you think, okay, well, Hashem's controlling the livelihood. So what am I doing in this equation? Just give me the money.
Right.
Let's just make this simpler, okay? Here's my bank account number. Just put the money there. We'll skip the whole business. But that's not it. The whole, commerce causes us to engage with other people. It forces, it leads us around the chessboard to put us in these situations where we can then change who we are. And that is the permanent, eternal structure. And that is where victory comes in life. It's not that we earned money to build a business, but we overcame all the things and changed ourselves. That's what he's trying to guide us to do. Because that's the permanent structure, that's the victory, that's the eternity, that's the Netzach.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed the episode and found it meaningful, please take a moment to rate, review, and share the podcast.